Points of access.
With Phillip White.
Today we're going to cover Saba Meeting and the accessibility issues that we found when looking at the application. So this is the application, and as you can see up here in the left, the microphone is muted and the video is off. What I'm going to look at first is the keystrokes that you can use. If you notice, there's an underline under T, C, S, and so forth. Those invite the use of the Alt key to trigger. So if I press Alt T, it turns on the microphone, and I can toggle that. If I press Alt V, I get the video, and I can toggle that. If I press Alt I for invite, it just basically takes me to another web page. It's nice that I can access this content, but it does require someone to memorize the keystrokes, such as how do I get down here to the chat? Well, I can press Alt 4 and it puts the cursor in the chat, and then I can type a chat. And then I can press Alt D to send it. The other issue with this is that the drop downs over here, except for add content, if I press Alt C, it gives me the ability to download a file or a YouTube video. But if I press Alt S, I just share the screen. I can still trigger the on and off with that. I just can't come over here and drop down any of these items. The same with poll. If I press Alt P, it gives me the ability to do a question, but the drop down does not work. I can't choose. For recording, if I press Alt R, it's going to start recording. So some of this works and some of it doesn't. The drop downs here for share and poll don't. What else doesn't work is the settings. There's no command to get to these items here. Actually, there is one to maximize the screen, which is the F11 key. However, I cannot come over here and trigger this settings screen. And there's inside the settings screen, I'm able to, for instance, add a sound or set up the conference. So if I press Alt E on the screen, I'm going to be able to change that. Alt O for audio and video, Alt R for app share, Alt T, and exit. This allows me to set whether it publishes or doesn't publish the recording. If I press escape, I get out. So that's how the keyboard access works. Areas where the keyboard access doesn't work would include these areas that say invite people, add content, adjust audio, and test video. You can see that I can highlight them with the mouse, but I have no way to keyboard to it. If I'm up here at muted with the audio, and I'm going to turn that off. If I use the standard keyboard keystrokes that most people who are using keyboard access only would use, they would probably try to navigate around the screen, and that would include pressing the tab key. So if I press the tab key long enough, and you notice that when I press the tab key, there's no focus changing. But if I continue pressing it, eventually I'm going to get the cursor down here in the chat. And I believe that takes around 18 presses of the keystroke. But if I continue, it went to all, and I can change all here. And then if I advance to the send button, there's no highlight on that, so you can't tell you're actually there. So I'm lost. However, I can still go back. If I press Control Home, it takes me, oh, by the way, Control turns on and off the mic as well. So if I press Alt T and then Alt V, as I've already shown. One last detail that I did not cover is that you can get help with the audio by pressing Alt A. I can also press Alt P.
Welcome to the Centra Audio Wizard.
And that command works if I want to do dial in or voice over IP or call me up here. I can press Alt and N, Alt and L, and Alt and V and get those commands. So the commands work, yet the navigation to all areas is inhibited by the drop down for share poll, and also the help there and the settings right here, help and settings, are not triggerable from what I can tell with a keystroke.
Accessibility testing.
Okay, we're going to do a little demonstration here with JAWS. A JAWS user is going to primarily use keystrokes. They're going to use the
insert F5 key.
The insert F6 and the insert F7 to try to access the controls with F5. F6 would be the headings and F7 would be the list of links. And if that doesn't work, then they're going to try tab key. And there's no audio feedback for navigating. Therefore, they're going to have to memorize keystrokes. And even when I get down to chat, it doesn't announce that I'm in a place where I can type. I would have to press Alt 4. And then I would know I'm in the chat. So there's really a lack of navigation for those using screen readers. I have the full screen of Saba Meeting showing up currently, and on top here you'll see something different, and it's the drag and dictate software, which I'm going to demonstrate has a few problems with working with Saba. There are all these keystrokes for operating inside of Saba, but for someone who doesn't have any use of their hands, they're going to be using a voice input technology like Dragon. And generally, if they have a system, they're not going to be using a keystroke to turn on and off the microphone either. So when the microphone is on, as you can see it's on now, it's going to pop up a box like this where you're typing in text so you can transfer it into a box. I'm going to cancel this. Go to sleep. That's going to be the command for the person who can't use the keyboard. They're going to say go to sleep. And wake up. Go to sleep. The next thing that you need to know is that they're going to be using mouse commands, using their voice to move the mouse around, and they're going to use a command called mouse grid. So I'm going to show you by demonstrating how to select a poll. Mouse grid. 1, 3. Click. I'm turning off the microphone. A person is going to type into this field, and I can do that readily. This is the question. Click transfer. Go to sleep. And that's how they're going to enter the text into these boxes. That's not where the problem is. The problem is when you're trying to navigate in here, and Dragon software thinks that you are wanting to type and there's no text box to type into. So let's try dropping down the arrow next to share. Mouse grid. 1, 3, 4, 9. Click. Drag down. That's the very problem that I ran into. When there's no text box that you are going to type into, you still get the dictation box, and then I have trouble getting out of the dictation box once it is up. You can use Saba Meeting
With Dragon Dictate.
However, you need to be careful that you control the Dragon microphone very carefully when you have both the microphone working in Dragon and the microphone working in Saba Meeting. That's where I find the most problems show up. I'm going to wake up Dragon. Wake up. Mouse grid. 1, 1, 7. Click. Go to sleep. So I had to turn off the Dragon microphone so that the microphone would not think that I'm typing. If I turn back on the microphone for Dragon, which I'm going to do,
Wake up.
you will see what happens. This dictation box shows up, and I haven't yet found a way to type into a dictation box unless there's a box for me to transfer the text into. And that's very frustrating because it's basically crashed Dragon. Though I can go to sleep, though I can turn off Dragon like that, I cannot get rid of this box. At this point, I have the box up, and I want to see if I can still use Saba Meeting even with the dictation box up. And more especially, I want to see if I get to poll, if I can type into the poll. Wake up. Mouse grid. 1, 3, 6, 8. Click. Go to sleep. And so, as you can see, I cannot operate Saba commands using the mouse any longer. The next thing we look at is whether the system enlargement will work, which is usually a keystroke like Control and plus and Control minus to make things larger and smaller. If I press Control plus, nothing happens. Control minus, nothing happens. Therefore, this aspect is missing. I did test with Magic screen enlargement software, and it worked perfectly well within this environment. One more item that I wanted to mention is how Saba Meeting can be captioned for those who are hard of hearing and deaf. First of all, you have the chat here, and someone can be assigned to type in what they're hearing in the sessions in chat. But this is very difficult for some people to follow, especially when there's a multiple of people presenting. However, when you finish the recording as the presenter, you are able to download that file, and you could send it out to have it captioned.
Thanks for watching another Points of Access video. We hope that this will help you with any of the projects that you're working on.